Hey guys, Nemo here. Today I wanted to talk about a few things. So first of all, let's bring this up. Because Wingspan TT, I'm sure most of you are familiar with. So yeah, he has a press preview of the game. So he'll be posting footage, impressions. So that's something to look forward to. In case you didn't know, yeah, I thought I should tell you guys. Just go to GameFAQs to the Duels 2013 board, and you'll find this thread. So yeah. Other than that, let's get back here. So yeah, first of all, I wanted to make another announcement, and that is namely that I'm pretty much done with the deck build videos that I was making. And the reason for that is, well, my deck build videos, I never really wanted to do every single deck, because I'm sure most of you have seen the other deck build videos by the other people on YouTube. You've read about it on GameFAQs or whatever, and I'm sure most of you know how to build your deck. I think it's pretty useless to show you every deck when they're pretty much the same to what you've already seen. So I decided when I started these deck build videos, I decided that I wanted to show you the builds that I think you may not have already seen. And yeah, the last build was Realm of Illusion, and the reason I showed that was because I run Cultural Exchange, which I've pretty much only ever heard people say is a bad card, and it's not. So, and I felt like it's the best deck in the game, and I wanted to talk about that as well. And I felt like I should do at least a deck build on the best deck in the game, right? So yeah, that's why I've done that. Now let's get into the real reason I'm making this video, and that's that while I'm done with the deck builds, there's 2 weeks left for the next game, and I feel like it's time to bring out the tier list for me. I know it's gonna be a bit late, but better late than never, right? And I wanted to make sure that I have every deck that I gave every deck another chance before I did this, and I also wanted to make sure that you guys know who I am, because I couldn't like start off with my YouTube channel and be like, okay, this is my deck list. Hey guys, I'm Nemo. So let's look at what deck I think is the best deck, and yeah, there's gonna be 4 tiers, but that doesn't mean there's gonna be 5 decks in each tier and 4 in one uh, in the last tier, because I just I put the decks into a tier if I think it belongs there and not because it's in the top 5 or whatever. But yeah, we'll get to that when we get to that, I suppose. Let's go and check out my number one deck, and I've already said it, Realm of Illusion. Yeah, this deck is just so good. If you know how to play a control deck, it's just the best deck in the game. A little story to it was that at the start we all thought that Bloodhunger was the best deck in the game, most of us, and we were wrong. It just took a while to figure out how powerful Realm of Illusion was, I guess. Once you did, yeah, it's wow. All these counter spells and stuff, you can just so easily control the game. You just have very cheap, small guys like these bears and the mists that just grow bigger and bigger over time, and then you have a bunch of counter spells and you have a bunch of bounce, and you just simply uh, make sure that you have a better board position than the enemy, and from there on it's just counterspelling whatever they're trying to do that actually affects the board. Because like if you have a free bear out and they play a 2/2 guy, you don't have to counterspell that, right? That's an easy example. But if they play a free guy, then you might want to counter that. And if they play a 4/4 guy, then you definitely want to counter that at that point. Unless you can bounce it, or you can do. But always you have to look at how am I going to control the board, and how am I going to make sure that I win the game. And you just don't counterspell everything else that isn't important. Um, and if you play it that way, then you're never gonna run out of cards to win the game with this deck. The only way you're ever gonna lose is if you get land screwed, or if the opponent has an extremely lucky draw like Painfire. Alright, so next deck I suppose is gonna be, well, there it is, Beknighted. And yeah, nobody likes this deck. Well, nobody that I ever speak to likes this deck. It's boring to play. There's no way around it. It just there's no real tricks you can do with this deck, and if you do, then it's because you have bad cards in it, like Righteousness and Hold the Line, which aren't needed in this deck. And yeah, just this deck just works really well and it's really efficient, but it's boring to play. And it's really annoying to play against when they have a protection guy against you. And that's the problem with this deck, is it's no fun to play against and it's no fun to play as. But it's still the second best deck in the game, and for a lot of people who may not be great at card games and who may not figure out just how powerful Realm of Illusion is, then this is the best deck to play as. And yeah. Well, oh, by the way, I have Noble Purpose in there, mainly for the mana curve. It goes from 6 to 3. I think that's a decent number for 24 lands. I think that works out well, and I consider it a game winner, Noble Purpose, because yeah, I'm able to attack where I wouldn't be able to attack, where we were in a stalemate, and I drop this and I can attack then, and gain enough life that I don't have to worry about being counterattacked. So that's the main purpose there's there. But yeah, other than that, my deck is pretty much the same as you've probably already seen. I think actually my deck is pretty much identical to Dice Show's, except he runs one of these Lionheart Mavericks and not the Noble Purpose. But other than that, yeah. So nothing new to see here. Move along. Next deck is, for me, well, this might be a little bit of a surprise, but it's gonna be Ghoulkeeper. Yeah. I don't know, from the really powerful decks that I've seen, Ghoulkeeper is one of those that people never really seem to mention. It's really powerful, but it is. I get really consistent results with this deck, and what I like about it is that it doesn't really have a bad matchup. There's just no deck that really consistently wins against Ghoulkeeper, so it's good against anything. But yeah, these guys, the Stormgold Crusaders, are win conditions against white decks that you just play on turn 2 and then they rage quit because you have a pro white guy. Um, and yeah, it's almost as annoying as the Knights, except this deck isn't full of those kind of cards. So yeah, I run this guy because, well, he attacks for 4, and most of the time being a little bit more aggressive works out. And I pretty much, all the cards here are cards that I don't like. So Reanimate, I was talking about this lastly in the last video, I think, and I decided to just throw it out for now and decide if there's going to be a better card that has more value to me. For now, I've decided to use this Beacon of Unrest and see if that's going to be any more useful, because I remember last game I could have been able to survive if I didn't have to reanimate and hurt myself while reanimating. If I could have just beaconed, then it would have been better for me at that point. So yeah, because the thing is, reanimate, unless you have unless you start off with Gravetide in your hand, and sometimes I don't know. I guess, well, this guy might be worth it, Abattoir Ghoul, but other than that, yeah, there's just, oh wait, no, this guy would be worth it. This guy, Undead War Chief, or Gravetide. If you start with those in your hands, then I guess turn 2 Undead War Chief or Grave Titan is pretty much a win. But other than that, just having this in your hand and not having that combo, you usually use it late, and at that time, if you're in a damage race, then it doesn't work that well. So, reason why I'm gonna try it without, and if there's gonna be a card that works better than it, then it's out. Otherwise, I'm gonna put it back in. So yeah. Other than that, every card here is cards I don't need. The Cellar Door, I've seen people will use it, and everybody that uses it for some reason uses it wrong as well. They target their opponent's graveyard. People tend to think they're milling me with it or something, I don't know. But other than that, Warpath Ghouls, all vanilla creatures that I don't like. Grave Defiler usually doesn't really get me many zombies, and usually I have enough card advantage that I don't need it. This guy doesn't have trample, and I don't like it because it doesn't have trample. It's usually just sitting there slowly whittling away on the opponent's forces, and it's way too slow and doesn't work very well. And then there's these massive ghouls and these rotting legions and whatever this guy is called, Zombie Goliath, I think. Just vanilla creatures that I don't even know what they're doing here, and you don't play these. And Phage is just Phage the unplayable, right? Because it's too expensive for this deck. It doesn't work. And usually the opponent just blocks it. So yeah, I mean, it's a 4/4. It's easy to kill it as well. So yeah, if it had like flying, I guess it would be better. and Army of the Damned, which is just way too costly. However, I guess, you know, Phage and Army, I guess if Beacon of Unrest doesn't work well, then I might look into those cards as well. But yeah, no, I don't think they're good. Too expensive for this deck. But yeah, so that's my Ghoulkeeper deck, and it works really well. And yeah, it doesn't have any bad matchups from what I've seen. So yeah. Next up is gonna be, well, an oldie, but a goodie, I guess. Blood Hunger. It's always been good, and it's still a good deck. So um, took a while for people to figure out that you have to run this with full vampires and none of these kind of spirit dudes and whatever. And I think people might be running these vampire bites. I don't know. I don't run these. I think they're bad. They're just a worse version of like Wild Growth or whatever. Um, so no, I don't think this deck needs it to win the damage race, and I don't think it needs it as removal either, because you have plenty of removal. And you have plenty of stuff that helps you win the damage race, so I don't see what the purpose of adding these is. Um, yeah, other than that, I don't like these guys. They're way too... Well, they're bad if you don't have Bloodthirst, and you don't always have Bloodthirst, so that's why I don't like them. This guy has always been way too expensive for what he does, because his ability, whenever a creature dealt damage, blah blah blah, but nobody ever... that just never happens. You don't block Sengir Vampire until you have to, and at that point his ability doesn't matter anymore. So it's a 4/4 flyer for 5, which isn't good enough. Why am I putting it in? I didn't want to. I accidentally pressed my mouse button there. Stalking Bloodsucker is bad. Butcher of Malakir is way too expensive for this deck. Doesn't work well. It's nice for Realm of Illusion when I'm playing Realm of Illusion and my opponent has Butcher in the library and I'm able to grab it. Then it's nice, but other than that, no. Repaying Kind, I don't know why this card is even in the game. No, no, just no. It's totally bad. But yeah, that's my Blood Hunger build. I'm sure many of... Yeah, whatever, quit without saving. I'm sure many of you have already seen a build exactly like it, so yep, not really worth discussing too much about. So let's go to the next deck in the list, which is pretty close to Blood Hunger, but just doesn't make it, and it's gonna be March to War. I've seen people call this the best deck in the game, and I don't agree. I get why they're saying it though, and that's because this deck has answers to everything. And the exile stuff, it has a lot of lifelink, which is nice as a bonus. It's just really, and it has a lot of tokens, which not many decks can easily deal with. So it can easily deal with the opponent's deck, and the opponent will have a hard time dealing with your deck. However, it's still just not as good as the other decks that came before it, I suppose, in my tier list. But it's still a tier 1 deck, and it's really good. And the Squadron Hawks, whenever you have a hand and it has a Squadron Hawk in it, you know you can play your hand, because it's always going to be good. So that makes it easy to mulligan when you have that. I have a few, maybe a bit weird choices here. Let's go over the list a bit, I suppose. I have 2 of these Ceradon Yearlings in there because I couldn't fit this third one in anywhere, and I took out these Boros. Is the last thing I took out for the Yearlings. So yeah, I know that Boros with the double strike, the reason I used it earlier was because if you have like Land and Sun standard and all that, then the double strike is worth more. But yeah, it's not, for that combo isn't worth using the Boros instead of the Ceradons. So yeah, use the Ceradons because they have vigilance and haste, and that's pretty good. Also, Land and Sun standard, I know it's a win condition pretty much, but there's so much in this deck that's a win condition, and if you have 2 of these, then it's just bad and doesn't work very well. So instead I put in 1 Bold Defense, so I have 1 Bold Defense and 1 Land and Sun standard, and those 2 work together, you know. So yeah, and then there's a Searing Meditation, which I also only have 1, because if you have 2 then you have a dead card. and it doesn't work well. And also Solemn Offering, which also only have one of. So yeah, a lot of one-offs in this deck. Um, because these cards just work better if there's only one of them. So there you go. And then there's this, which, I always thought that this deck only needs one big guy. And out of all these, I've tried them all, and I concluded that Cassandra is simply the best one to use. So yeah. I run it red-white, by the way, because, well, if I need to convince anybody to play it with the red in it, then there's only one card I need to point at. This is your game winner right here, and if you don't have this card, it's like sort of War and Peace. This if you draw this card, you won, basically. It's very unlikely that the opponent will be able to win still if you have Glory of Warfare, unless of course he has Solemn Offering, and that's a reason to use one. This is mainly the reason to run it red white, and other than that, Cassandra is good. These guys are good. Searing Meditation is nice, but you can't count on drawing it. Lightning Helix is good. This stuff is all good, but the main reason to play this deck red with the red in it is gonna be Victory's Herald, because it's just of a glory of warfare. I mean, Victory's Herald is this thing which you don't run. My bad. Yeah, so that's the main reason to run with red in, and you don't get mana screwed enough that it matters that you're or, that I want to run it mono white instead. I just don't get mana screwed that much with this deck, so maybe once every odd 10 games or something, and I don't think running it white is gonna be worth it. So yeah, next up, wait a second, those were five decks, weren't it? 5 decks and 1 tier. Yeah, but it's gonna be 6 decks in tier 1 for me. And that's because I think this deck belongs in there. Wielding Steel is a tier 1 deck in my opinion, and I've seen people, well, I don't know, I hardly ever see anybody play this deck anymore, and I just, for the life of me, can't figure out why people would think that this is not a tier 1 deck. I mean, you get so many surprise wins with this deck. Am I pointing at something? I might be hinting at a certain card in this deck that wins you games out of nowhere. Sorry, One Piece. Wins you so many games, and pretty much half your games you draw it, because you also have Stoneforge Mystic, which helps you draw it. So yeah, those are just so many wins just from having that one card in the deck, and that helps put this deck in the tier 1. And other than that, it is a solid deck. If it wasn't for Sword of War and Peace, it'd probably be like tier 2. But with Sword of War and Peace, I think it's in tier 1. And yeah, at the start of the game, this was a bit of a weird deck, right? Because it had a bunch of late cost guys, a bunch of these angels and stuff. But it seemed like there were just too many in the deck, and this was supposed to be an aggro deck, right? It always looked like an aggro deck. Lots of small creatures, so and it didn't have 4-drops, and that really held it back. If you wanted to build this for late game, then you were missing those 4-drops. You didn't have anything on turn 4, like it just didn't work well. So you built this as an aggro deck, and it performed really well as an aggro deck too. And it's mainly also still because of cards like Infiltration Lens and Sword of War and Peace and stuff like that really helped out, and all that. And sometimes you got Argentum Armor thanks to Stoneforge Mystic and oh wait, they're not even in there right now. Core Outfitter. So yeah, that was nice. Like I said, this worked well as an aggro deck. It was still, I think, the third best deck at the time, because you had Blood Hunger and Realm of Illusion, and then there was Unquenchable Fire, which beat the two best decks, Blood Hunger and Realm of Illusion. And Wielding Steel always won against Unquenchable Fire. That's a little history lesson for you guys there. But yeah, this deck has always been good, and then the expansion came out, and there was a bunch of 4-drop stuff in there. The Guardian Seraph and the Harmless Assaults and the Lockdown Gatekeepers are actually, I think this was already in. But anyway, the point is we got 4-drops that work well in this deck. and now we have enough 4-drops to make it work as a bit of a slower deck. I think at that time people might not have really noticed Wielding Steel anymore that much, because they started to figure out the new decks and the new cards in other decks, but the new cards in this deck really made it a lot better. These Lockdown Gatekeepers are really good, and this Guardian Seraph is really good. And it allows this deck to play as a slower deck, and it's better off as a slower deck because it has 24 lands and it has a bunch of well, big creature and big drops and stuff like Conqueror's Pledge, Baneslayer, Captain of the Watch, Sunblast Angel, even Archangel of Strife, which I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I'm not sure if it belongs in here. I only recently switched it out instead of Argentum Armor because I wasn't really happy with Argentum Armor. And the reason for that is, since I'm playing this as a slower deck, right? I don't want core outfitters in there because I don't have that much equipment in there anymore. So if there's not gonna be core outfitters in there, then that makes Argentum Armor a lot less good. Even though it's a 6 cost in a deck that I wanna play slow cards in, but still, not having the core outfitter makes Argentum Armor a lot less attractive to me. So I put in Archangel of Strife instead, and I'm gonna see how good that works. And the idea here, I guess, is that if I have more creatures than the opponent, and I only need to deal like 3-4 damage, then if I drop Archangel of Strife, then I won, right? Because I can just attack with choose war, attack with everything, and that one guy that gets through is gonna deal 3 more damage than it would have otherwise, and then I win the game. So that's basically the idea of Archangel of Strife there. Other than that, obviously it's always nice if you can go Harmless Assault into Archangel of Strife or Sunblast Angel. Now I've got another option other than Sunblast Angel that I can Harmless Assault or Congregate into, and it will win me the game. So yeah, it does combo well with the rest of the deck. And I guess I'm gonna see how well it works, but I haven't tested it yet. So yeah, just a little side note there. But yeah, this is my my tier 1 decks, and I wanted to start with tier 1. I'm gonna work downward from there. I don't know why, but that's just what I decided to do. And yeah, you guys are gonna see tier 2 decks next. So I hope you guys enjoyed. And my name has been Nemo. My name will still be Nemo then. And next video, next time, same channel. See you then.